As a native New Yorker, just seeing some of the clips and the obstacles, it was something that we did do in a childhood here in New York City, playing in the different local parks that we did have, running around the community, playing games like Manhunt, where you would have to jump over a fence to get away and stuff like that. And I said, this is something I think that I can do, and I needed life outside of the gym.
Yep.
So I hopped on, I made the commitment in February of 2012 or March, and just bit the bullet.
Welcome to the Spartan Endurance Series on Spartan Up podcast with host Johnny Waite.
Hey Spartans, Johnny Waite here, one of the hosts of the Spartan Up podcast with another special endurance episode where we teach you how to go faster, longer, better, stronger. We've got a great guy, Michael Taylor. He's from the Bronx. And when I think endurance, I think Colorado, I think Montana. We're talking downtown Bronx, New York. And Michael's going to talk to us about how he found endurance and how endurance has made a difference in his life that's allowing him to make a huge contribution in his community.
Today's episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by BetterHelp. Spartan Up listeners can save 10% on their first month by going to betterhelp.com/Spartan.
Hey Spartans, welcome back to another endurance episode of Spartan Up podcast. I'm really excited today. We've got a guy, Michael Taylor, and I'm just going to start by saying, Michael, when I think of, Spartan endurance, I tend to think of, Colorado. I tend to think of, the mountains. I'm talking to you in the Bronx. Tell me how a guy in the Bronx gets started with Spartan endurance.
Limited access to hills and huge distances, and just venturing out of the community.
So how did you find Spartan in the first place? Because I know that we don't have a lot of races downtown New York.
Yeah, I found out about it in 2012, winter of 2012, through the promo on YouTube. They had the Powerful Beyond Measure.
Yep.
Promo, and had Hobie Call and a bunch of the guys, and it just resonated with me.
And what was it like? What was it that made you say, I'm going to go and do this?
Well, as a native New Yorker, just seeing some of the clips and the obstacles, it was something that we did do in a childhood here in New York City, playing in the different local parks that we did have, running around the community, playing games like Manhunt, where you would have to jump over a fence to get away and stuff like that. And I said, this is something I think that I can do, and I needed life outside of the gym.
Yep.
So I hopped on, I made the commitment in February of 2012 or March, and just bit the bullet.
And tell me a bit about that journey. So you go and you do the first event and you come away, and how did that then lead to a super, and how did that then lead to a beast? Why did you carry on down that process? If it was just run around playing tag, the sprint gives you that. What was it about the sprint that made you decide to do the super and the beast?
Just the community that I had been exposed to, and also an additional challenge. Certain life experiences led me to have the ability to endure, but to endure in an environment that I was familiar with from a childhood through programs like the Fresh Air Fund, which takes inner city kids to the suburbs of like Rochester, New York, Pennsylvania, and tri-state area.
Yep.
And to do those additional more endurance races, you have to push even further than what you did during the sprint.
Yep. And you mentioned the idea about some of those opportunities, like the Fresh Air Fund and things like that existed to help inner city kids.
Yeah.
What triggered it for you to say, hey, I'm going to use this experience to actually go and create more opportunities? A lot of people are consumers. They look for things that they can use to get better, which is fantastic, and that's why they're there. But you decided to be a producer. You decided, I want to now take this and make a difference for other people. So tell me about that process.
Well, that process began with the community that I'm in for the Bronx. We have the lowest and poorest health in the state of New York, and also parts of the country.
Say that again. The lowest.
We ranked lowest in terms of health in New York City and New York State, and also the country. We rank at number 62, and we come in with high rates of obesity and diabetes.
Yep.
And one thing that I do know is that within the community, you have to begin there if you're going to influence the children.
Yep.
So if you get the adults active, they'll be the leaders that we need to help make these changes.
And have the kids learn by osmosis. They look around and see what other people are doing.
They observe it. They want to be be involved, and it takes for the adults to be involved and committed to that change.
Yep. So tell me a bit more about that. So tell me about, what in fact you are doing, and then I want to talk more about how you're doing it and why you're doing it, and what is it about you. But so first of all, just be specific about what actual steps you're taking.
Okay, so after my first race, I decided I needed to bring more people and introduce them to the Spartan OCR nucleus. So I tried to recruit friends and immediate people I knew that was working out. That was the first step. Um, and then I started working more with like the community through civic engagement, trying to figure out ways how I can get things done, certain additions to the parks, the communities, understanding the time frames that we have access to these parks and stuff, and just what resources did we need in my immediate community and some of the other areas of the Bronx to do it.
Awesome. So I'm going to go back again to, an average person. They go and they do something hard. They come back, they recover, they decide they've earned some coach time, they're back on the TV, and then until they do it again.
Mhm.
What was it about the events that energized you, that you found that not only did you want to keep doing the events, but you actually had more energy to put into other parts of your life, like making this difference?
What I found was, just like I said, the connection to make things better in the world, and that drive and ambition, and also the fact that the first race kicked my butt. So
Yeah, sure.
I kind of wanted revenge to get back out there. And in order to do that, since the race calendar is set up in about a year's time,
Yep.
that gave me more adequate time to prepare for this new journey, which was the super and getting ready for the beast and stuff like that.
Yeah. So now let's go to the beast, because this portion of the podcast, I'm really focused on endurance. And now that said, the sprint is still endurance for a lot of people. I mean, if you're going coach to sprint, enduring that is tough. But once you get to the beast, that's endurance. That's
Yeah.
like, putting your head down, and there's no one that doesn't at some point during a beast think, what am I doing here? What have I got myself in? Do I need to finish this? So tell me about your first beast experience. This guy from the Bronx finds Spartan. All of a sudden he's on a mountain where, doing what?
The first time doing the beast, that component of the journey was getting the endurance component up. So I had to find one of the other local parks here, Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx, to simulate the race distance. That was the major part of trying to do it in such a confined space, because I
Mhm.
had to do numerous loops. When I found myself at the beast amount in New Jersey, the first thing was a little intimidating when I saw the hill, the initial hill ascent, and there was snow covered, and the weather was a little tricky around that time. I think the weather temperature rose to about 72 degrees, but we still had snow.
Mhm.
And I knew that I had a lot of time on my hands, but I had to get out there and push and poke and pride just to get over the obstacles that was before me, and also to prove to myself that all the training that I did for this was going to result in some type of reward.
Sure. So, and again, what was the reward for you? So we'll come back to, what it inspired you to do for other people, but just in terms of your own life, what difference did it make in your life to be a guy who does those things?
Well, what it did was, again, it expanded my mind to some of the different challenges that we face. Because even during that time on the hill, I ran into an obstacle where I was misdirected.
Hmm.
And that usually would break most people, because I had to get put back out on the course and do some of the things all over again that I thought that I had already accomplished and achieved on the obstacle course. And just to do that whole journey, it breaks most people. But my drive and my intention was to be able to complete it, to show others that it is possible, especially being from the Bronx.
I really love that you brought that up, the idea of an error on the course, whether it was your error or a race official's error.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of people don't consider how much you learn from that. They think of it as a physical thing. Can I endure the physical?
Hmm.
But to get out there and have something like that happen, and not just say, "Screw it, I want my money back. This is ridiculous. I'm blaming somebody else."
Yep.
But to say, "Hey, I came out here to finish something, and if I need to double down to finish that, I'm going to finish it."
Yep.
That's a huge lesson, and especially because I look at how can we take this back to life?
Hmm.
Like it's great to be able to go out and be a great racer, but how do you take these experiences back to life? And certainly that's something that's relevant to life. When something that doesn't go the way it was supposed to, maybe it's not even your fault, but you still have to decide how you're going to handle it.
And one way that that's achievable is through discipline. It'll teach you patience and discipline. So no matter what, as a leader, you have to be able to say, okay, or even just as an individual, somebody else made a mistake, you responded to that mistake, but how do you persevere and continue on your mission? My
Yep.
mission was to do the beast. That's what I set out there to do. So you're able
Sure.
to bring those things home and figure out, okay, you forgot to move your car here in the city. You get a parking ticket and you
Yep.
got to pay the ticket, or you can fight it,
Yep.
or you can be more disciplined to remember to set your alarms and everything to get out to prevent those things from happening,
For sure.
regardless if it's your error or not.
So you picked an important word there, mission. And when you started with Spartan, it was going to be fun. You were going to go do it, and then it turned into a mission. I'm gonna go longer and harder, and I'm gonna
Hmm.
do a beast. When you're on the beast, that's a mission. You finish that mission.
Hmm.
What would you say your mission is now with Spartan? So obviously you're still racing, but it's become more than that for you. So what's your mission today?
Yeah, my mission today is to still recruit. Last year, I was trying to bring 50 people to the Tri-State Spartan Sprint, which was my initial race. And that mission continues because I know by reaching 50 people, they have 5 to 10 people on their list that may be exposed, or it'll pique their interest that they'll want to get involved to try it. So
Yep.
Spartan has become that vehicle for me to say, hey, it seems tough, but if you're supposed to be from these communities that are tougher for other reasons, you've had to persevere and endure, try something different, and then bring
Yeah.
that back and see what each individual is able to do going beyond, which helps my ultimate mission.
And give me some stories of some of the people that you've been able to bring out and the differences made for them. So maybe somebody who they hadn't seen the promotion like you did,
Mhm.
never would have found out about if it wasn't for Michael Taylor. Give me a story about somebody that you've brought out and the differences made in their life.
Well, the number one person that I can say has made a difference in their life was my daughter Misada. She's in her second year of college. She started out with the children's races. Her and my wife were apprehensive about me doing the races to begin with. And my daughter, I think she was about 7 or 9 at the time. So after her participating and seeing me succeed at something physical and demanding and challenging, she was able to go on to do the adult races and join me by my side for the race.
Yep.
And so many times that she's been interviewed for college and high school, these things will come up about challenges that she had to face because with a heavy school workload, she wasn't able to train adequately the way that I was able to. And she
So
persevered.
I want to ask you a question. When you said that at first they were apprehensive about you doing it,
Yeah,
about you taking it on, I love that you've completely changed their perception of you.
yeah.
What was their perception of you at that time? Why were they afraid of you going and doing it?
They were afraid of me doing it because at 20 years old, I almost lost my life due to a altercation. I was assaulted,
Mhm.
and I almost died or whatever. My throat was slashed or whatever. So they've been very, very, very protective of me.
Yep.
And some of the visualizations that I would come across in videos of Spartan, and then discovering the death race, and the slogan also that you
Yeah.
may die at the end,
Mayday.com.
they weren't with it, so they became apprehensive of me doing it, just knowing that the potential of me getting hurt or being separated from them could pose a challenge and disrupt the family nucleus.
So, so at the time, they were still looking back and, obviously a very traumatic experience. They're looking back at that. And at that time, that was defining you to some degree where,
Yeah,
they were afraid of that reality.
yeah,
Whereas now you've gone out and done these things and created this aura of invincibility almost, for people listening, you're not going to die at a Spartan race. You're going to come out and you might feel like it part way through, but you're
yeah.
going to come out stronger at the end. So what would their perception of you now be and of them? Now they see you as this guy who can do anything. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. And now it's kind of the thing of also trying to pull the reins sometime, but still letting me lead the way in that leadership capacity. And I think sometimes they're looking to see what else that I'm willing and capable of doing for part of the mission to improve their health and wellness. So they've taken the lessons that I've learned, what I've endured,
Yep.
and have been able to implement that on their own life capacities and whatever programs that they're trying to implement and start. So
Absolutely.
they're
Yeah.
on board.
Yeah, no, that's great. So when I look at that progression, the progression from you not doing things like this, and
Mhm.
and look, defining yourself by looking back on something terrible that happened in the past, and that was limiting you and limiting other people's understanding of you. By taking something on and completing it, and then pursuing bigger challenges, but more importantly, sharing that.
Yeah.
Like you could have just gone and done them and not told anybody, and then it may change you a little bit, but it doesn't change their understanding of you. But more importantly, by involving them in it, like you say, now your daughter, this is actually something that she refers to when she's doing her college applications as a badge of honor.
Yep. And she's
Yeah.
able to take that and also incorporate other people that are her age from these communities to also do the races. So
Yep.
she's able to say, okay, we're doing an adult Spartan race. My goddaughter, she's come on board, and 2 or 3 of the other friends. So now it becomes a thing of she ends up in a leadership position just based on observing me and my ability to endure and continue to go ahead.
Yeah, and you're creating and shaping the culture of your family, of
Yeah.
your friend.
Community. Yep.
Yeah, cool. So I want to ask you, this will live on forever on YouTube, but right now we are still in the middle of COVID when we're doing this interview, and tell me how you are still pushing yourself, stretching yourself, allowing yourself to not atrophy during this time when it's hard to be out, harder even than usual to be out doing endurance events.
Yes, well, having had COVID last year in March of 2020, my wife and I both suffered from it for about a month and a half.
Mhm.
It was a challenge to get back out there in the communities because weren't people weren't taking or seeing the seriousness to the illness.
Yep.
And being a person who's fit and gets outdoors, being that I was impacted by it, it limited my interactions to some degree. I had to find other ways to get out in my community to exercise. And also through just the Spartan nucleus, I was able to end up doing enhanced enhanced endurance racing via like the 24-hour
Yep.
Mount Sparta challenge, post COVID. So that was another time that I had to really dig down deep and, persevere and endure what I had just been through to help make a difference for my community, to show that even if you've had COVID, you can still get out there and push with limitations to try to improve your health and also lead by example.
Absolutely. You're such a great example of a guy who has, like you say, you had a tremendous trauma when you were 20. Here you are, you're taking on the world, you're doing everything right, and suddenly you've got COVID, and you're not going to let that define you. You're still going to be out there building and getting stronger and better. Um, and what would you say that the experience of having already done the endurance events and having
Mhm.
had the experience of already been out there leading and driving other people, when it came time for you now, suddenly you're in quarantine, you're recovering from COVID, your confidence level to now say, hey, I've done it before, I can do it again, um completely different ball game than it would have been otherwise.
No, being who I am, it's still a thing of persevering and trying to make that difference. Like I said, it was the mission for me to help improve the Bronx and beyond, the health of the Bronx and beyond. So if Mike doesn't show up sometime, other people may not show up
Yep.
because they'll start to see that, there's a reason he's taking a step back, but to just be absent when people may be looking for leadership during times like these, if I say it's my mission, you're going to expect me to show up to fulfill my mission. So
Yep.
I just use that energy to just continue to build and recruit and try to tell people like, hey, look, we're out available on these weekends. Come join us for a workout. I don't charge anything. The thing is, you show up and we'll take it from there. If you're
Yeah.
going to run, the thing is for you to get out here and endure. If you're not capable of walking, show up. I'll walk with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Capable of running, I'm going to try to run with you. And we just
Yeah.
go from there.
And much like Spartan itself, it's funny, as a company, we've certainly had to practice what we preach this year as far as overcoming obstacles.
Yeah.
We're in the event business. Suddenly for a year there were no events,
Yeah.
and yet to go virtual and to stay in contact with people. And I love this podcast platform that I can speak to you in the Bronx, I'm in Canada, and yet now we're in everyone's living room, as they're growing from this. So hey, one thing we haven't even talked about yet, and we're going to actually come back for a subsequent episode to talk
Uh-huh.
about your team, because your team is a big part of all this. So I want to actually talk to you specifically about the team. But for right now, I just want to thank you for being you, man, for doing what you do. not just growing and sharing that experience about yourself and what you've overcome, but the
Hmm.
difference you're making for other people, and the fact that you're using all of this for the betterment of others. I just salute you, man, and I just say that
Thank you. I appreciate it.
yeah, you're killing it. Keep going, and so I do want to encourage people. I know that we often publish these in a couple of episodes because we're keeping them short.
Hmm.
So I'm going to give them a little bit of a preview. Tell me the name of your team and how they find out more about it, and then we're going to go come back later and talk.
Okay. The name of the team is Team Spartan Spades. We're located in Bronx, New York. We train and meet up maybe 3 times out the week, but
Yep.
you are welcome to join us for fun runs, color runs, everything social distancing due to the current times that we're in. Ice fishing, hiking. We're currently taking advantage of hiking Mount Beacon.
Mhm.
If you don't have a means of transportation, we can figure some things out as best as we can through planning. And they can find us on Instagram and also on Facebook, Team Spartan Spades.
Awesome, man. And when we come back, we're gonna talk about if somebody, most people listening aren't going to be in the Bronx, so they can't necessarily take advantage of your team. But if they want to build a team, if they want to go out and create this kind of world for themselves, how to do it. So you're going to help them with that.
Yes,
Thanks,
I
man.
will. All right.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Endurance Series on Spartan Up Podcast. Spartan Up is your partner in resilience for mind, body, and spirit. We're here 3 days every week. Tuesdays, you can find Joe DeSena, founder and CEO of Spartan, interviewing biohackers, business leaders, authors, and athletes. Thursdays and Saturdays, catch episodes from our DECA, Endurance, Trail, Combat, and La Ruta series. Do you know someone who needs a little nudge? Maybe they could use some motivation, tactics to be stronger, healthier, happier, more successful. Tell them about our show. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment. We want to know who's watching and who's listening. Thanks. See you next time. Today's episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by BetterHelp. Spartan Up listeners can save 10% on their first month by going to betterhelp.com/Spartan.